We are not camping this weekend. We actually are headed in the rain to take a look at a Jeep. The Onion Creek Loop persuaded me that I might want to try something different, so we're just going to take a look today. Welcome back to another episode of Eric's Camping Adventures. We are going to look at an old YJ Wrangler today. We are at the Chandler Park overlook, and that is the Tulsa skyline in the background there. And from up here, I'm just going to show you around this Jeep Wrangler. I apologize, the wind and possibly a little water in my GoPro has definitely affected the sound, so I'm going to be doing a lot of voiceover in this video. We had a little bit of a break in the rain today. Good enough light to wander around this vehicle and take a look at some of its features at this point, but I will consider this to be my before making changes video. You can see on the front of it, there's a nice little bull bar, a winch, and there is a bumper with some recovery points and D-rings. Just for the official announcement, this is a 1993 Jeep Wrangler. It is the YJ model. It does have some 32-inch BF Goodrich tires on it. But I think the most redeemable part about this Jeep is the 4.0 liter high output motor that's in it. It is the straight six, and it seems to be running just fine at this point. In the rain, these tires look okay, but they're actually a little bit older and dry rotted, and the rims are old, mismatched with the spare, and when you get up close, it's not as beautiful as the Tulsa skyline there in the after rain light. Obviously, this model has half doors and a soft top. There is some stitching that's coming loose in the soft top, and I do have a friend with a pretty industrial strength sewing machine, and we may take a look at that. The paint on the hood, it looks like clear coat has oxidized. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I may try to buff it. I may try to buff it with wax, or we'll just see what we need to do, see if that will change or not. Paint jobs are awfully expensive. We're looking at maybe $6,000 to $10,000 depending on what you want to do. You can see that the lock on the driver's side door is missing, and there's some other things that just are in need of repair on the vehicle. The turn signal indicator has a little catch in it that is a little off, but as you get in a little closer here, you can see that, things are used. It's a 1993. The seat is torn up. It's dirty inside. And, now that's the important part right there. Too high, 4 high, and 4 low. That's the important part. That's what we're looking for. Hopefully the Onion Creek Loop would not generate as much anxiety the next time. I was able to take this out to a parking lot with some loose gravel and do some maneuvers to assess whether or not 4 high and 4 low were functional, and it did appear to work just fine. There was no noise in the transition from 2 high all the way down to 4 low. And the vehicle does appear to have front, rear, and center lockers. I'm not an expert on this, but let's take a look under the hood. Clearly, it needs to be tidied up under the hood here and just cleaned up. But if you look at the back of the valve cover there, you can see kind of the accumulation of dirt and dust on the back there. It appears to be a valve cover gasket leak that has just slowly seeped oil down even below onto the oil pan and spread out. And I do think that's the cause of the oil appearance. Up here you see some rust by the windshield. Tapped on it pretty hard. It doesn't have any different sound to it. It's not mushy. I think I can probably get that windshield out, sand it down, and get that smooth and sealed back up without any issue. I'm excited about this project. I had a budget set for a Jeep Wrangler, and so far I'm under budget, but by the time I put the money back into repairing some of these things, I think I'm going to come right about to my budget. Let's look underneath. You can see the whole exhaust system is in need of replacement there, and it really is, from the manifold back, catalytic converter behind the rock shield there. It's just got to be replaced. If you come around the front and look underneath, you see that suspension is all intact, no leaks at the front differential. Some old boots there with some grease fittings, but for now I'm just going to grease them good, and we'll deal with it later. But those suspension parts eventually will have to be replaced. I could not find the death wobble driving it, so that's a good thing. In the rear, the rear differential is definitely leaking. I'm thinking just a gasket and some RTV sealant will fix that, and be back on the road in that regard. Here's the other side. The rust isn't too bad underneath. This is just not something that's been in salt. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. First thing I think I'm going to do is drain the oil out and just look at the quality of it. Look for some sparkly things in there. I think the rear differential is obviously a early on choice there, and I probably will use a gasket and RTV sealant. You never know if it's been whacked or if it maintained a straight surface, but the gasket has a little bit more forgiveness for a bent cover or any other kind of defects. I will also do the front differential, the transfer case, and the transmission, and just drain them, service them, and look for any wear. But I do think that this is going to be a pretty good project for me. Just driving this thing makes me feel like I'm a kid again, riding with my dad in his old dump truck, 5-speed. My dad taught me to drive stick when I was pretty small. That old dump truck had a 5-speed with the same shift pattern, but had a of course, the high-low was right there on the stick, if you remember those red buttons. But he used to just take his big old hand and stick it over my little hand, and we'd run through the gears. But we only did that when it was empty. When it was loaded, there's a lot more at stake there. I had some pretty rough roads coming home with this thing, and it really didn't beat me to death. So I was pretty impressed. I think the seats in it, while they're old and torn up, really aren't so bad, and I'll probably look for a similar replacement. Back next time and we'll start pulling this thing apart and checking it out a little bit closer.